Hey guys, today we are going to get the B2320 ready for winter. For me, what that means is taking off and storing the backhoe, mounting the 3-point hitch and hooking up my rear mounted snowblower and changing the front tooth bar to a flat bar. I find the flat bar works better for pushing snow around. Now these aren't major things, but they do take a little bit of time. I do normally do this before the snow comes, but we've been occupied with another project. We took down a bunch of trees that were leaning and kind of rotting on our property line, and we've been chopping and splitting the wood. So the tractor's been working, and consequently we haven't had any time to switch things over. But today's the day. First thing I have to do is move another snowplow that's stored in front of my my snowblower, so that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but nothing that this machine can't handle. The only other thing is I was going to make a part 3 for the 400-hour service. Never really got around to it, but I did shoot some footage of all the greasing that I do for the backhoe and the loader and the tractor, so maybe we'll take a look at that right now. Okay, so the first time I greased this tractor, it was a huge pain. And it's a problem because it does have to be done fairly often, every 10 hours as suggested by the manual. I usually grease the pivot pins that have a little bit more travel more often, but I hated greasing this thing. It was my least favorite thing to do on the tractor. So I looked for solutions to the problems I was having. The first one that I figured out pretty quickly is raise the bucket straight away. There are some grease fittings underneath that you can only get to after the bucket's raised, and it's just more comfortable to work with the bucket off the ground, and everything's at a more comfortable height. So first thing we're going to do is raise up the bucket. The next thing to do is to clean out your fittings. Last thing you want is a piece of dirt, small rock forced into your grease fitting and clogging the whole thing. It's a real pain to kind of unclog everything. So what I normally do, take a small screwdriver and a rag and just go around each one, clean them off. It's not necessary you get all the grease out. Just make sure the top of the fitting in particular is nice and clean. Now a lot of fittings that have close contact with the ground get really caked full of whatever material you're working on. So definitely important to go through, clean everything out. Okay, the next thing that makes greasing a heck of a lot easier is an automatic grease gun. I never actually owned a manual grease gun. I was advised by friends of mine fairly early on just to get an automatic one. The electric ones are great. I've never used one, but they're nice that you can take them into the field and grease on location. Since I have compressed air in this garage and I'm never really using this thing off-site, I just picked up a pneumatic one. These are really inexpensive. I think this one was under $100, so well worth it. The other thing that I'm not sure if this is something that's the same for all grease guns, but the standard end was really hard to take off of the fittings. It was just awful. That was probably the worst thing about greasing this tractor. A lot of these fittings are in really tight spots, so putting it on is one thing. Every time I went to take it off, when I greased this tractor, I would inevitably hit my knuckles or my hand on some pretty hard steel, and it would be incredibly painful and incredibly frustrating all at the same time. So probably the best thing I ever bought was a quick latch. So you just unscrew the standard end, put this one on. This one's from Lock and Lube. I don't know if there's other manufacturers, but It's just a quick clamp. Just clamp it on and push to release. It is the best thing. I think it was only 20 bucks. To be honest, it could have been $50, $100. I would have bought it because hitting your hand on this steel, it hurts. So, got all the fittings cleaned up. Let's start greasing. See it. There it is. Okay, if you have a backhoe, there's a lot of grease fittings to grease. There are 4 on each foot, 3 on the business end, 4 up top, 3 on the dipping end, and then 2 on that cylinder. So let's get started. Okay, so as I said before, can't stress it enough. Those quick connect grease gun fittings on the end are a huge help. I would never grease this tractor again without that attachment. All it does, you order it, you screw the press on end of the grease gun off and screw that on. I'm pretty sure they're standard for all grease guns. It worked on my pneumatic grease gun, but those things that thing was a lifesaver. I hated greasing this machine. I would always hit my hand on some part of the steel, and yeah, it hurt a lot. So those things are awesome. So let's get started in switching this thing over. First thing we're going to do is we're going to move that plow that's behind the shed before I take the backhoe off, because whenever you're doing front loader work, this backhoe is really good for providing ballast. I've used the loader without the backhoe and it's like night and day. I think this backhoe is 700-800 pounds, so between 700 and 800 pounds. So it provides a lot of very ballast that's placed very far back of the rear wheel. So whenever I'm doing anything, make sure the backhoe is attached. So let's get started. Okay, that's it. Taking the backhoe off is pretty straightforward. Putting it back on is another story. It's a big pain, but don't have to worry about that until next spring. Alright, so this job is pretty straightforward, just swapping out my tooth bar for the flat bar. This is the Piranha tooth bar by BX Expanded. And yeah, it's been awesome. I would recommend anybody with a B or a BX that has a bucket without the option of a cutting edge to put one on, either this one or another one. I think the new 01 series has the option, has the holes drilled in the bucket for an optional cutting edge. But the tooth bar has been really good, makes breaking into piles a lot quicker, and then when you curl and lift your bucket, you get a full bucket of dirt almost every time. I've been really happy with this. And as you can see, when these things show up from brand new, they are extremely sharp. This thing was razor sharp. These edges were all squared off, and you can see the amount of wear that I have. I've moved countless buckets of material with this. I mean, we order, when we get topsoil or gravel to do projects, we just order a tandem dump truck full, and I can usually distribute it with this tooth bar in under a day, depending on how far I'm carrying it. But you can see the wear that this tooth bar has gone through. Without the bar, that would have been wear on the actual cutting edge of the bucket, and because there's no replaceable cutting edge, I guess eventually you just replace the entire bucket. So for the price that these are, I'm pretty sure these are a lot cheaper to replace than an entire bucket would be. So very happy with my tooth bar. So happy with it, in fact, that I ordered one that was just flat, just a flat edge. What happened was, first year I had the machine, took the tooth bar off and was scraping the driveway, the snow on the driveway, with just the bucket edge, and you know, again, concerned about wear for that, so I figure what's another bars are, I think they're just over $200, and so what I normally do is scrape down the driveway with the flat bar, again, just to save wear on the bucket. This thing also works well for breaking into piles. Normally in the springtime, if I'm not that ambitious, I'll leave this bar on and move topsoil and gravel with the flat bar. It does a very good job as well, breaking into to piles. But yeah, so let's change these out. Okay, so there's the backhoe stored for the winter. I normally put a strap through the all the hydraulics. They have a tendency of drooping over time. These ones actually aren't too bad, but just to make sure they stay up and make sure the boom doesn't kind of relax out a little bit. And yeah, it'll stay like this until the springtime.